Guys, I'm going to get started. There's 25 people in here, 53 RSVP'd, so I think we're sort of capped how many people are going to show up. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our very first Siligong marketing meetup via Zoom. This is the biggest crowd I think I've been in with Zoom, so I'm just seeing lots of little grids everywhere. But if you can't hear or something, just make sure you wave, or if there's any tech glitches, we'll try and sort something out. But first, I'd like to talk to you about Siligong. So Siligong is just a grassroots movement all about bringing the tech industry within Wollongong together. So our whole purpose is to get the tech professionals that are working in Wollongong here so that we can talk to each other, learn from each other, and also just find out what everyone is working on. So the best way to become part of the Siligong community is to join the Siligong Slack channel, and I'll put that in the chat box in a second. So you can just go and join that, and then there's how many? There must be like thousands of people in there now, I'm assuming, who are all Illawarra locals working in the tech industry. And then within that, we are the marketing meetup. I've just lost. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the one sheet up. Okay, so we've got two speakers today. We have Sean, who's going to speak first, followed by Diana. I'm going to introduce Sean. Sean is the head of marketing at Easy Agile, and he loves creating remarkable customer experiences, growth strategy, leading agile teams, optimizing conversion rates, and digital marketing and funnel execution are some of his exceptional skills. So I'd like to welcome Sean.
Thanks, Reem. Thank you so much for that introduction. Hello, everyone. So good to see you all. So good to do this online. It's a different feeling than in person, isn't it? But I'm sure we'll still get a lot out of it. I'm really looking forward to hearing Diana's talk a little bit later as well, and hopefully we don't contradict each other. Hey, Diana, that would be bad. But yeah, thanks so much for having me. My plan for this chat is to leave a lot of time for questions at the end. And so if you have any questions along the way, store them up, let me know what they are at the end, and Rin will pass them on. Can I get a thumbs up? Can you see my slides there? Awesome. All right. So it's a bit of a crash course tonight, but more than happy to pick up the conversation in the Q&A at the end, or maybe in the Slack channel afterwards. A little bit about me. I'm head of marketing at Easy Agile, a local tech company here in Wollongong. Before that, I had marketing, content and digital roles in Sydney in financial services companies, and also at UOW. And throughout my career so far, I've been really fortunate to have opportunities to do a whole host of things, from running marketing experimentation programs, and also to look at traffic and content marketing and SEO, which has been great. So tonight we're going to talk about how to scale up your business, or perhaps the company that you're working in, using content marketing and experimentation. Very intriguing. So let's start with content marketing. You might think of content marketing maybe as a blog or YouTube videos, or in recent times, maybe TikTok. I must admit, I'm a little bit addicted to TikTok at the moment. But it's so much bigger than just building a following on social media or collecting likes. And whether we like it or not, it's time to accept that everyone needs to be a publishing company. In 2020, every business, every freelancer, every consultant, every agency, every marketer, everyone here in the Zoom, I strongly believe we need to be media companies. It sounds a bit strange to say it like that, but I think we need to adapt to where the world is moving. And we've seen that to be really true during the last few months during COVID. Outgo the in-person events, outgo the sponsorships, outgo the out-of-home campaigns. There's really no point putting an ad in a bus shelter anymore because people aren't on the streets. So how do we connect to our tribe when life is cancelled? How do we connect to our tribe? I think the answer is content. So how do we get to this point? Well, you probably have noticed this trend. When Facebook, Twitter, and these social startups got going, all of these platforms were trying to grow their businesses. So they were giving away eyeballs for free, right? They were more than happy to promote content that businesses were putting out there. Happy days. But in recent years, as these big platforms have gotten more and more popular, not so much. And we're left asking, where have my eyeballs gone? Where have all my followers gone? Organic social reach is pretty horrible now. It's really hard to get an organic social post out there and into the algorithm. And even organic search, only 40% of Google searches now end up with a click. And some searches are almost entirely ads served by Google or syndicated content that Google is pulling from websites and just displaying natively on the search results page. And meanwhile, the cost of paid media has skyrocketed. It's more expensive than ever to try and get those eyeballs that we previously got for free. So what's the answer to this? We have to get back to the basics. What makes great content? Well, I think great content is three things. It's anticipated, it's personal, and it's relevant. That's it. Anticipated, personal, and relevant. It doesn't need to go viral. It doesn't need to be overly creative or flashy. But what it does need to do is be genuinely helpful. It has to meet a need that a real human has. It definitely can't be annoying or salesy or too cheesy, although a little bit of cheese is okay. Your content needs to meet a need that actually exists in the life of a real person in your tribe. It has to be generous first. So you have to give first before you ask for anything in return. So there's a few examples of this, and they're actually really inspiring in the content marketing space. So Canva, we all know, I did these slides in Canva, an Australian business now worth about $8 billion. It's a bit crazy. They actually grew their business off the back of content marketing and SEO. They built thousands of landing pages for each different type of design that someone would ever want to make. So they've got a landing page for birthday card templates or invitations to 3-year-old birthday parties. You name it, they've built a specific relevant piece of content for that audience type. They even built a design school to help aspiring designers learn their craft. That's pretty awesome. Wistia is another example. It's a video platform. They've created documentaries to help aspiring video makers. Shopify built a logo maker to help their online sellers get started in building their business. And Webflow, a no-code website builder, they launched an academy to help teach their users how to do web design. So I've been studying some of these brands for a while and how they do their content marketing. And when I was working in Westpac in Sydney, I was working in the digital team there for about 5 years. And looking at the SEO data in the home loan space, I saw that the keywords around home loans calculators had 100,000 monthly searches in Google in Australia. And in Westpac's website analytics, I saw that those people who used a home loan calculator were 50% more likely to go on and apply for a home loan with Westpac online. So it was a really simple insight using the data that we had, but it was extremely powerful. Because if we could invest more in improving our content, in this case, calculators and tools, we could drastically improve both the traffic to our content and also the conversion rate. So this is where it gets really powerful. I invested in what was already working. So I already knew that this content was working for us. So what we did, we went and refreshed all of our calculators and tools. We added new features. We made it work on mobile. We actually built a new free property research tool where you could find out the value of any home or look at suburb trends in real estate. And this work wasn't easy, but it was effective. We rapidly climbed the SEO rankings and ended up doubling our revenue for the year. And this project was a big part of that. But this content kind of breaks the mold of what we traditionally think content should look like, doesn't it? So these aren't articles or videos or blogs, but calculators are personal, they're relevant, and they're timely, and they're genuinely helpful to the audience that at the time Westpac was trying to connect to. So how can we make this a repeatable process? What I'd recommend is look at your analytics to see what is working today, plus try to add in some small experiments. Try and experiment with different content types you might not have considered before to see if something is a standout success. You might even want to try and repurpose some of your existing content. Try it on TikTok, try it on Snapchat, try it on YouTube, try it on LinkedIn. Let's see which channel works for the audience that you're trying to connect to. It's really easy to make assumptions, but often the best way is to go and do it and then measure the results later on. So what could you create that is genuinely helpful for the people that you want to connect with? So you've identified your target market. What's something they'd really like to hear from you about? And what's an experience you could deliver that's really going to be genuinely helpful for them? Okay, and once we build out different content types that are helpful for our audience, we can then look to move them through to a value exchange. People are more than happy to exchange value for value. So once we build that trust, we're giving, and making their lives easier. We're solving problems for them, for our tribe. We can then have the permission to ask for something in return. And I like to call this a micro conversion. This might be something as simple as asking for an email address or asking them to start a free trial of your product, or maybe just sign up for a webinar that you're hosting. So on the Westpac free property report, what we did is we added in live chat and we added a link so people could send an email if they needed help with financing their home loan. It didn't have to be a real complex thing. We didn't have to put a big ad up the top. And actually, in fact, the less friction you have in that user journey, the better. So once we've built out that series of different types of content, we've got a few layers of micro conversions working for us, we then start to see a funnel emerge. And we can see that traffic that pours in at the top eventually comes out the bottom in the shape of new customers, new sales, new revenue, new leads. And then we have that. Now that's something we can optimize, right? We've got the funnel. We've established what that conversion rate looks like through the funnel. Now we can look at optimization. So this is what an optimization process looks like. It's otherwise known as experimentation or conversion rate optimization. You might have heard the phrase CRO, stands for conversion rate optimization. Companies like Spotify, all the big banks, Facebook, Twitter, they all now have dedicated growth teams or teams that run experiments on you 24/7 to find out what works. So you can kind of think of this like science for business. Basically, the goal is to get more people to make it through each step of your user journey as quickly and as seamlessly as possible. To do this, you need to form a hypothesis. So it's very similar to a scientific experiment. We need to form a hypothesis as to why changing something on that website or in that journey might lead to an improved conversion rate. And this is easier when you have a lot of traffic already coming through. But if we've got the content marketing part of the funnel right, we should now start to see traffic. But the process of running these experiments, they're normally A/B tests, which you might have heard of in the past. This process is exactly the same, whether you're running a small business, whether you're an agency, a freelancer, a consultant, or if you're a multinational company, it doesn't matter. This process is the same. So once we run an experiment, then we can take the learnings and we continuously improve and iterate. We go back to the top. We go back to user research and testing. We go back to our analytics. We form a new hypothesis, run the next test. So this process just continues over and over again, and it should never really stop. So how powerful is CRO? How powerful is optimization of a funnel? Well, I think you'd be really surprised. Some of the experiments you run really do challenge your assumptions. And over the 6 or 7 years that I spent running these experiments at Westpac and also a multinational money transfer service called OFX, it's really quite surprising about what works and what doesn't work. Sometimes the ugly design is the one that wins. Sometimes an image of a human might lose to an image of a dog. Or maybe that's not surprising to you at all. Other times, your experiments just fail completely and you actually damage your business instead of pushing it forward. But you always learn from the experiments. Now, this funnel here is actually an experiment I ran at OFX, which is a money transfer platform. And we redesigned the homepage in the UK. And based off our research, we had a few different insights about inserting more social proof, more customer testimonials. We did a redesign of the layout of the homepage. And we actually saw, after running this experiment, a 30% uplift in conversion rate of people going through and signing up and opening an account with OFX. And that translated to a saving of $800,000 over the course of the year for that business. So it's hugely significant. And you can imagine when you're working at that multinational stage or you're working with a big bank, it can really start to have a compounding effect. If you're taking all of that traffic, and even if you're getting a 1 or 2% uplift in the conversion rate, it can have millions of dollars of benefit to the business at the end of the day. Now, marketers often get criticized for not really impacting or caring about the bottom line of the business. I really hate that characterization because I think marketing is essential to driving revenue. And this model actually shows that by focusing on the right things, marketers can absolutely have an impact on the bottom line of a business. Because revenue is directly linked to 3 factors. Number 1, the number of visitors you get to your content, i.e. traffic. Number 2, the conversion rate of that traffic. And number 3, the lifetime customer value of those customers that you acquire through that traffic. Now, today I've talked about 2 of those factors, visitors and conversion rate. So how can we get more visitors? Content marketing. Let's find what works with the tribe that we're trying to connect to. How do we improve the conversion rate? Through setting up an experimentation program and trying to convert the traffic that we are getting at a higher rate. So the golden formula for success, the formula for scaling up your business, whether you're a company of one or a multinational company, it's all the same. The golden formula is growing traffic plus a growing conversion rate equals a growing business. It sounds really simple, but I found it to be true. So if I had to condense all of this into 3 tips, it would be tip number 1, make content that is genuinely helpful. Tip number 2, experiment to optimize your conversion rate on the traffic that you are bringing in. And number 3 is to combine the power of point number 1 and point number 2 to grow your revenue and to grow your business. And this is a repeatable process. So I've taken this process that I've learned at these big companies in Sydney, and now I'm following this at Easy Agile. What we've done is we've also narrowed down on the content that's working well for us. For us at the moment, it's SEO, webinars, and email marketing. And now we're going to move on to the next step and look at experimentation and automation to try and convert that traffic that we've worked so hard to get and make the most out of it. Well, thanks so much for listening, everyone. Before I hand back to Rin, I just wanted to talk about 3 things. The first thing is I'd love to continue to talk about these topics in the marketing channel on Slack. So if you haven't joined, please do join and post your questions anytime throughout the next few weeks or months. Be more than happy to talk about this. Number 2, I do post a weekly email newsletter about what's trending in marketing. If you're interested or you're into that sort of thing, feel free to subscribe. I'd love to send it to you. And point number 3, Easy Agile is a local software company We do have some software developer roles open at the moment, but we will be looking to grow the team in the future and hire more people into our non-software roles and also grow the marketing team. So if you're interested in joining Easy Agile in the future, please let me know on Slack and I'll let you know when we post a new job. Thank you. Over to you, Rin.
Thank you so much, Sean. That was awesome. You squeezed so much into that short time. I'm sure everyone's minds are blown. Has anyone got any questions? I said put it in the chat, but if you want to just ask a question, ask away. Or if you want to just think about it, I've got a question to start off with, Sean.
Sure.
Lots of questions. So first one. So with the funnel, within your funnel, what if in every single step your conversion rate is the same? Which step do you recommend you try to optimize first?
There's a few different approaches to this. It's quite a controversial topic within CRO. Some marketers like to start at the bottom of the funnel because you're closer to the revenue. Others will prefer to start where you have the highest opportunity, which is generally towards the top of the funnel. From my experience, it's very rare that you have the same conversion rate throughout every single step of the funnel, especially if you narrow down into a really minute level of detail. So, what we did at Westpac, we didn't just look at conversion from traffic to sale. We looked at what's the conversion rate from step number 1 on the application form to step number 1A to step number 1B. Where are people dropping out? And you'll often find that, oh, look, we're asking for this person's occupation or this person's address, and there's a 90% drop off at that point. Let's start there. Do we really need to ask that? How can we reduce friction? How can we make it simpler for our customers to make it through and actually get where they want to go? So analytics really helps there. You'll see where the greatest drop-off points are. And then you can also experiment about where you look to optimize your funnel first. So, okay, let's do a month at trying to optimize getting people from landing on our website to that micro conversion. Let's see if we can nudge the dial there. Okay, that's not working. Let's spend some time at the bottom of the funnel. We have all these people who are leads, but they're not converting to a paying customer. Let's spend some time there. You can work your way up and down the funnel. But if I had to pick one, I'd start towards the bottom of the funnel because these people are more highly qualified customers and they're much closer to the sale. So maybe a little bit of effort there will result in a higher impact for your business.
Awesome. Thank you. Has anyone else got questions?
I've got one. So in your experience, Sean, how long has it taken for an experiment to mature before you would expect to see results?
Good question. Thanks, Jazz. If you haven't met Jasmine before, she's a product marketing manager at Easy Agile. Thank you, Jazz, for that question. How long does it take before you see results? So what the number one thing you want is to see statistical significance. So I spoke a lot about it being a scientific process. What we don't want is to just run the experiment for 1 or 2 days. We see a big drop in sales and then turn it off. What we want is to see normally at least another, if you're a smaller business, another 100 successful conversions to see what the A and B experience differential is. If you're a bigger business, you'll need at least another 1,000 successful conversions, and you might have another 800 unsuccessful experience off the back of that. So generally, you'll run it for a minimum of 3 months with at least 1,000 successful conversions. But if you're a smaller business, 100 is okay. It all depends on the statistical significance of the experiment you're trying to run. There's a lot of really helpful statistical significance calculators that are free out there. Neil Patel's got one on his website. So there's a few you can use to plug in, well, how much traffic are we getting? How many people are we showing experience A to? How many people are we showing experience B to? How many conversions would we need to prove that the changes we've made have actually been the things that have made the impact in the experiment?
In the interest of time, I'm going to pass on to Hayley now to introduce our next speaker. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, and thank you, Rin. I definitely know that I learned a lot that I can take back to my workplace. So thanks, Sean, for those insights and those couple of questions that we had. So now I would like to introduce Diana I've known Diana for years, and I was like, Diana, how do you say your last name? Iopolo. And so I'll introduce Diana. So Diana is a freelance website copywriter and SEO expert. Diana helps smart brands connect with their customers with clear, easy to understand and engaging content. With 14 plus years in marcoms, Diana is here to share her experiences and how to get results with SEO. So Diana has a presentation as well to share with everyone, and then I've got a couple of questions, but also again we will open it up to the floor at the end of Diana's talk and my questions if anyone has anything else. So Diana is from Ignite Content, and I'll pass over to you. Thank you, Diana.
Thanks, Hayley. Hi everyone, and Sean, that was a great presentation. Mine probably won't be quite as exciting, but I'll try my best. So I'm just going to share my screen. Make sure it's all working okay. I love the examples you had, Sean. Mine's a little bit more around the copywriting side of things, so it'll be a little bit different. Just try to get ready here. Okay, is that working okay, Hayley?
Sure is, yep.
Great. Okay, so as Hayley mentioned, my background is in marketing communications. I spent about 14 years working mostly in financial services as well, like Sean. In marketing, product and communications, I spent a bit of time at the Wollongong City Council, and now I'm working for myself as a copywriter and content marketing specialist. And I have a bit of SEO background. I provide SEO copywriting services as one of my services, hence the presentation today. So just on to the next slide. So from what I understand, everyone's got a different level of knowledge of SEO, so I thought I'd start with some basics before I get into the copywriting piece. So, you know, what is SEO? SEO is basically the process of improving your website to increase its visibility for search engines on the results page. So there's an example there of the search results page and some organic results underneath. So it's about doing different things to your website to give you the best chance to show up on that page. Now, why bother with SEO? Look, Sean made some good observations how there's a bit more competition for organic results these days. There's the paid results, there's, you know, featured snippets, there's a little local area pack that comes up. So depending on your industry and what you're going for, it can be a bit tricky. But for those that do get results with SEO, the results are pretty impressive. So this stat here, you know, the number one result, average click-through rate is 31.7%, which is pretty high when you compare that to sort of Google ads. Depending on which industry you're in, they're usually around the single digits. So if you do make that number one result, it's a pretty compelling result. And even the top three get 75% of all click-throughs. So there is a bit of a joke in the SEO space that, you know, if you're on page 2, you're kind of dead to the world, which I guess has a bit of truth when you think about that. So basically, if you do have a good ranking, it helps with visits to your website, which then helps with your conversion, as I talked about before. So taking a step back in how do search engines work, you know, the basics are basically these algorithms that crawl the website and crawl the internet, and they look for the most relevant information to match the search query. So they look to find the right information, look at the quality of the information, and then use different factors to determine, you know, where it should be ranking in the list. So Google has around 200 plus ranking factors. We don't know exactly what they are, but we have a pretty good idea because we have a lot of experts out there analyzing and testing to see what works. And then Google provides announcements regularly as well with some information. So some factors are stronger than others. For example, things like the page load times of your website, the responsiveness on different devices, the quality of content, they're all really huge factors, whereas others are a little bit smaller. But that's really how many things they look at when it crawls the internet. So going back then to the foundation, so a lot of clients that come to me really talk about keywords and wanting keywords on their website, but a lot of people don't understand there's a lot more to SEO other than keywords. So what I've covered here are sort of the 3 foundations of, you know, having SEO work for your website. So the first is the technical piece, you know, how is your website built basically? So this is around technical pieces, have you got your sitemaps submitted to Google? Is your website fast? Is it taking a long time to load? Is the content on there, if you've got videos, interactive pieces, are they loading fast? Is it responsive across different devices? As I'm not sure if many of you know, but Google is now mobile first, which means they basically look at your mobile site first in your ranking, and desktop is no longer the primary way that they look at it. So if your website isn't responsive to mobile, that's not a really, that's a minus for your SEO results. Next, we have content. So do you have quality content? This goes back to what Sean was saying, how having helpful, useful content that answers the query is really what's going to help you move up in those rankings. So that's all about relevance. And then also, is it keyword optimized? So you can optimize your written content and even your visual content as well to help that work. And then finally, we have your links. So this is all about the links that lead back to your site. What type of links are linking back to your site? How many links? Are they relevant? And do they themselves have a good authority? So they're the three foundations. So as you can see, the keyword and content piece is one part of a much larger puzzle. If you haven't got the technical site, for example, your technical foundations right, you can have the best content in the world, but no one's going to see it. So it's really a combination of the three of these together, working together. Next we have, SEO copywriting. So when it comes to SEO copywriting, I guess like any sort of marketing initiative, the number one thing is to know your customer really well. The more you know your customer, the more you know their pain points and what they want, the better you can create content to serve what they need. So the goal of SEO copywriting is to create useful, relevant content for your target audience that also targets specific keywords. Now, why do you want that on your site? There's a whole bunch of benefits. So a lower bounce rate. So if you've got really good, useful content, they're more likely to stay on your website. It helps to build trust and authority, and the more somebody trusts you, the more they are likely to buy from you. It helps with shareability. So if it's a really good piece of content, people are more likely to share it amongst their networks, which brings more business to your site and more of a chance of conversion. And that's that last point there. So when it comes to SEO copywriting, I look at sort of a three-stage process, one being finding the right keywords, then the keyword placement where you put the words on the page, and then general writing online principles, which I'll just cover on the next page. So keywords. So what exactly are keywords? So keywords are a term used for the words that people type into search engines to find what they need. Now, it's called a keyword, but it's really a phrase. So it's really a collection of words based around a theme that you're targeting for your page. It's important that you consider the intent, which is the why behind the phrase. So for example, if you typed in copywriter in Google, copywriter could mean anything. It could mean copywriting course, what is a copywriter, copywriter in Wollongong, SEO copywriter. There's so many different intents behind that search. So the idea is to find the right intent for your business and for who you're targeting. And to do that, we go through the keyword research process. So down here, I've just got sort of a high level of what I would do when I conduct the keyword research for clients. So first of all would be a brainstorming process. So part of that's intuitive, what do you think your clients are searching for online? You can then use various tools to see what other people are searching for online. You can have a look at your competitors and find out what they're targeting. Then I'll go through a check. So I go through all the different keywords, check them all and see if they're valid. Are there any other keywords that are probably more useful than the ones I've thought of? If I find there's this low search volume, there might be others that might be more useful. For example, when you type in Google, there's often suggested phrases underneath, and they might bring some other ideas that you haven't thought of before, and so on from there. The next step after that is to evaluate all the keywords, which is basically looking at their search volume, looking at their competitiveness, and then also looking at the competitors. So you might have a term that's highly competitive, and there might be a huge brand like Commonwealth Bank that you're competing against, and that there's probably very little chance of you actually competing against that. So then you look at the next best term and see where you do have a good chance in potentially providing better content and showing up in front of them in the keyword search. And that's actually part of the choosing process as well. So when you choose your keywords, it's all about looking at your target audience, looking at your shortlist and thinking which are ones that you can actually maybe have a good chance at winning. And then it's mapping throughout your website. So the general rules around mapping is to have sort of one theme to each page. having a primary keyword for each page, and then having some secondary words to go on each page as well. So your secondary words would be synonyms or similar words, and this basically helps Google understand what your page is about. So for example, if you were doing a mortgage broker Wollongong, you'd have words like home loans and a few other things that are similar to relating to a mortgage broker in Wollongong that would be mapped out for that page. Next, after that, keywords placement. So once you've got your keywords, the first, my tip would be is to forget about them. Write the content that you think that your target audience would need or would want to hear and want to read, and then have a think about how to put the keywords in there, because at the end of the day, if your visitors and users aren't staying for the content, Google's also not going to rank it either. And then when it comes to the keywords, traditionally there was a lot of, there is a bit of a thought out there about repeating the keyword numerous times, but Google sort of advanced beyond that, and now it's all about diversity rather than density. So that means rather than having the same phrase repeated throughout your page, you would have those related words that I mentioned before. So that family of keywords of that primary and secondary per page becomes really important in that piece. And then that brings me to the broad match versus exact match. So when you are writing copy for a website, you might have a keyword phrase that's 3 words, for example, SEO copywriter Wollongong. You don't have to repeat that phrase in the same way throughout the website. You can say, for example, I'm a Wollongong-based copywriter who's trained in SEO. So you're still targeting that phrase. It's in a much more natural way, much more engaging. So you tick the boxes for the person reading the site and also for Google as well. There's a whole bunch of other things as well, which I didn't have time to go through in this presentation, but I've developed a checklist. So if you're interested in, if you're doing any SEO website copywriting for your website at work, you can go to this site and download a sort of 8-point checklist on things you can do to optimize your website on the page. And then finally, just some tips for writing online. So, I mean, as we all know, everyone's really busy. Our attention spans are short. When we go online, you've got about 3 seconds to get someone's attention. So my tips would be to, always remember that it's not about you, that it's about your ideal customer or target audience. I get a lot of clients, especially in the services space, that want to say, we do this and we provide this, and it's a bit of an education piece to remember. We have to start with the customer. When they're on there, can they see themselves there? Can they see their pain points being addressed, what their problems are or what their concerns are? And then that brings me through to voice of customer. So voice of customer is really important as well. If you've ever gone onto a website and think, wow, that sounds exactly like what I need, or that's exactly what I was thinking, a lot of the work behind that is voice of customer research, finding out how your customers are talking about your product or your service, what words are they using, what tone of language do they use. Then there's scannability, so using things like headings, bullet points, icons, all that kind of thing throughout the web page, so it doesn't look like a brochure, it's interactive. I think most of us are kind of across all that. And then readability. Readability is all about how difficult your copy is to read. Obviously, it depends on your audience, but as a general rule, the advice is to follow sort of Year 9 English level. And even if your audience is more sophisticated and they obviously can read beyond Year 9, there's a lot of studies have shown that the easier you make it to read, the more likely they are to stay on the page and keep reading, because people do obviously become fatigued and expect to have that plain English on the website. So that is my very quick high-level overview. We could talk about this topic for hours, but if you want to learn more about SEO and be across sort of what's going on, the changes that are going on, and know more of the detail about each of these things, these are sort of my recommended sites. So I follow Backlinko, Search Engine Journal, and Moz. So they actually have their own SEO products, but they've got really comprehensive blogs, great newsletters in terms of what's important. There's a podcast by Kate Toon. I'm not sure if many of you have heard of Kate Toon, but she's a pretty well-known SEO specialist in Australia. She's got a great podcast that has different levels if you're a beginner or intermediate, so it targets your level of knowledge. And then there's also free training that you can do online as well. A lot of these websites provide really extensive, fantastic content to get you across SEO. Then I also have a page on my website, which I created for today. I wasn't aware of the Slack channel being so commonly used, so I'm happy to answer questions there as well. And yeah, that is my overview on SEO for today.
Thank you, Diana. So I had a couple of questions, and then if anyone has any other questions for Diana around SEO, then please pop them in the chat or pop your mic on and ask the question at the end. So Diana, one from me. Which SEO tools do you often use? It's pretty complicated biz, but is there some go-tos you use?
Yeah, there's a whole range of tools at the moment, paid and not paid. So I use SEMrush, which is probably some companies have access it, some don't. They can get a bit expensive, $100 a month, whatever, for access. It really depends on what you use. So I use that. It's quite comprehensive because you can use it for keyword research, but you can also do other things. It helps you analyze your site. So you can do an analysis of where your site's at in the beginning, do an audit to see all the different factors that need improving. You can also check your competitors. You can run reports to your competitors to see what backlinks they have to their website and then see where you can target backlinks. So they're really comprehensive. But if you don't have the budget or access to those tools, there's a few free tools like Neil Patel's Ubersuggest. What's the other one? I use one on my website. There's a Google Chrome tool you can add keywords everywhere. It's something like $15 for 1,000 searches. It's really cheap, but it gives you that additional volume. For example, how many people are searching for it a month? How competitive is that term? And that'll help you analyze what terms to go for. I've got a link again on the website with a few other keywords everywhere.
That's great. Okay, so in the chat, if anyone missed the link, we've popped the link to Diana's Siligong SEO 101 there. So please take a look if you have a chance. And my second question is, what is link builder and why does it matter?
Yeah, so link building goes back to, remember how I mentioned those 3 fundamental components? So the third was that link building. So what is it? Basically, it's a strategy to try to have other websites linked to your website. So that could be you going out and trying to get mentions, for example, in the media, appearing on podcasts, guest blogging, all those kind of things, targeting media that are relevant to your website. And then link back to your website. That adds a signal for Google in their ranking process. And especially in March, there was an update, a pretty big update in Google where they're focusing even more on this. They're focusing on that expertise, authority, and trust piece. And having the right websites linked back to your own website really helps with that piece there. So if in terms of the whole SEO piece, if you have your technical foundations right, you've got your keywords optimized, and then you have a few backlinks, you've got a really strong foundation. The backlinks are a huge piece in terms of how your website will rank.
Fantastic. Is there any questions from the audience? We've still got a few people left. Any questions? Oh, Rin, you've got a question.
It's me again. Diana, quick one. What's a good bounce rate to aim for?
Yeah, look, it really depends on the website. I think it really depends. Yeah, and it depends on how old your website is. Depends on the type of product you have. I've seen a bunch of varying bounce rates. I couldn't give a sort of blanket amount. Yeah, unless Sean, do you have one that you think in your experience? I find it really varies.
No, it varies. Too hard to say.
Yeah, there's just so many factors in the bounce rate, and so it really just depends.
Okay, anyone else?
Laura has a.
Oh, Laura.
How often should you update
your website SEO?
Yeah, that is a good question. Again, there is no. It's kind of like content marketing in general. There's no hard and fast rule. It's one of those things that takes time to build. It takes time to build, but once you build it and you start getting that traffic, it's a really strong inbound marketing channel. And it's hard for people to take away that traffic. Yes, you do have to update things frequently. For example, if you were to target, so there's short tail keywords and there's long tail keywords. So you've got those short ones, those sort of 2 or 3 word phrases. Then you can also search a question, for example, how do home loans work in Australia? That could be, you could write a really lengthy blog or video answering that question, and you could get a lot of traffic from that. and, you know, make your way up in the rankings. And all you have to do is update it and tweak it a little bit here and there as time goes on, and you can still have a whole lot of traffic coming from that website. So, sorry, from that search term. So again, just depends. If you have a website that has no changes and you just let it sit static, it will fall down the rankings. You do have to make changes, but how often, again, depends.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Great. Well, haven't seen any other questions come through on the chat. If there is, I'm just going to do a thank you to the speakers. But I think that probably the best place to go after this, if you're not already, and it's been mentioned quite a number of times now, is to join the Siligong Slack channel. It's scattered throughout the conversation that we've got in the chat, and please reach out and join that if you haven't already, and pop your questions in there. I know that Sean is an active member, and Diana is as well. So and then there's, of course, Rin and I, who can always help and direct other questions as well. So thank you so much to Sean and Diana. I guess going forward, we're not sure when the next meetup will be and whether it'll be online or in person. I guess in person is always lovely. It's always great to catch up and to mingle with everyone. But if the next one is online or is face-to-face, of course, we'll put it in that Slack channel and reach out to everyone. I guess before we sign off, is there any announcements around? We usually do announcements around jobs. If anyone has a job that's opened up in their organisation that they would like to share with the team, any other opportunities that people here can get involved in. I know we've had some talk about software developers, but is there any other marketing or comms roles out there? Please turn on your mic if you have one. Crickets. Oh, Sam, do you have one?
Not for my job, but over at Excello, I know that they're looking for a senior designer. So I know that that's not a marketing role, but I know that sometimes there's a crossover of skills. So maybe Fantastic. If you guys know someone looking for a role like that, you could send them over to Excello. And for Tibra, we're searching for a senior data engineer. So if anyone knows someone like that, sorry, that's unrelated to the content, but
no, that's really good to hear. Yeah, no problem.
One thing, sorry.
Oh yeah, of course, go Rin.
So there's actually a Siligong podcast, and there's been talk about trying to revive that. And I thought it was relevant because we've been talking about creating content, and as for Siligong, it's really important for us to try and get the message across about there being a tech community here in Wollongong to keep attracting good talent. So if anyone is interested in taking on organising or just project managing the podcasts, if that's something you're interested in, please reach out to me or Hayley. Or if you'd like to be interviewed for a podcast. So we're really interested in professionals that have decided to be in Wollongong in a tech field. So if you are interested in any way to have anything to do with the podcast, please reach out.
I recorded most of the previous podcasts, so I'm happy to still be involved.
Thank you, Sam.
Great. Okay, yeah, so thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you again to Sean and Diana, who did a wonderful job. Please join the Slack if you didn't get that message already, and we'll keep in touch about future meetups. And thank you, Rin. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.